Hello, beautiful beings. Welcome to Soul Shift Messages. If you found your way here, trust there is something in this message for you. Understand this space is about growth, truth, and transformation. We don't bypass here, we don't sugarcoat, and not every message will feel comfortable, but it will be honest. I speak in flow, and that sometimes includes cussing. It's just part of how the messages come through. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and trust your own discernment above all else. Take a deep breath, and let's begin. If you're new here, please know at this time that I post weekly content in 3 parts. Part 1 essentially decides the topic for the week and focuses on what needs to be revealed about said topic. Part 2 focuses on what needs to be understood about what was revealed. Consider it a deeper dive on part 1. And part 3 focuses on what needs to be done, really to kind of move you through that transformation aspect, right? You get insight in part 1, you get understanding in part 2. Part 3 is really intended to move you into action so that you can embody those changes. And so what I'm going to focus on today is actually part 1 for this week. So it will focus on what needs to be revealed. You will, depending on when you find this video, you will find either links to the available content in the series for, depending on when you find this video, you will find either all the links to the available content in the description box below, or you will see a note of when that content will be available. So without further ado, today is part 1, and I am calling this message, "It's time to free yourself from codependency." And I have to shout out the viewer who watched my last video. I had talked briefly about how to collapse timelines and talking, at a high level about quantum entanglement, enmeshment, and codependency. And so when I was thinking about a topic to cover this week, I got the download that the person who watched that video actually did want me to break down codependency specifically. So kudos to you, you badass. If you are watching this video, I'm hearing you didn't think you could manifest much. Well, guess what? You manifested this whole fucking series for this week. So dream big, my friend. Big, big dreams, all right? So let's go ahead and get it going. So what needs to be revealed? Codependency is a relational pattern where a person organizes their identity, self-worth, and behavior around meeting another person's needs, often at the expense of their own. Now, I want to be very clear when I say this. It is a relational pattern. This can apply to family, friends, partners, co-workers. And if I'm being very honest, if you are codependent with one person, I don't care if they're romantic or platonic, you are likely codependent in your other relationships. Codependency does not discriminate. It is a relational pattern, not a romantic relational pattern, just a relational pattern. So I encourage you to listen to this message with an open mind and an honest perspective with yourself. All right. Codependency involves overgiving, overfunctioning, emotional caretaking, and a reliance on being needed in order to feel secure, valued, or loved. Rather than mutual exchange, it creates an imbalance where one person consistently compensates, manages, or sustains the connection. It can feel like love, care, or devotion, but it is driven by fear of loss, fear of abandonment, and difficulty maintaining a stable sense of self outside the relationship. It is an attempt to secure love by becoming indispensable, but in doing so, it produces relationships where authenticity is replaced with performance. Connection is replaced with attachment, and neither person is truly seen, supported, or free. They want me to say that again. It is an attempt to secure love by becoming indispensable, but in doing so, it produces relationships where authenticity is replaced with performance. Connection is replaced with attachment, and neither person is truly seen, supported, or free. That is that enmeshment. You cannot be sovereign when you are codependent and enmeshed with people. And I'm not talking about physically enmeshed, I'm talking about energetically enmeshed. You can Google that. Quantum entanglement will show you very straightforward pictures of enmeshment. Enmeshment is basically where you cannot energetically, or it's very difficult to energetically determine where one ends and another begins. All right, codependency is a belief system that can be dismantled. It can be. Whether you choose to and enforce it will be up to you, but it can be dismantled. What needs to be revealed is not just the nature of codependency, but the entire internal and relational architecture that sustains it, rewards it, disguises it, and ultimately traps people inside it. All right, let's break it down. The illusion that creates the pattern. At its foundation, codependency is built on learned distortions. The idea that being needed equals being valuable. That self-sacrifice equals love. That endurance equals loyalty. And that intensity equals depth. These beliefs are not questioned. They are internalized. From these distortions, an identity forms. This looks like the helper, the fixer, the one who stays, the one who understands. Over time, this stops being behavior and becomes self-definition. Identity fusion and role attachment. The relationship becomes more than a connection. It becomes identity. Self-worth revolves around it. Purpose is derived from sustaining it. Decisions are made to preserve it. And more deeply, the attachment is not just to the person, but to the role within the dynamic. This is the role of being indispensable, being irreplaceable, being the emotional anchor. This is why people stay even when needs aren't met. Compatibility is low and imbalance is obvious because leaving feels like losing purpose, losing identity, and losing self. The reward system that reinforces it. Codependency persists because it is not purely painful. It is intermittently rewarding. It provides validation. I matter. Intensity. This is meaningful. Purpose. I hold this together. And anticipation. It could become what I hope. This creates an addictive loop. It goes from overgiving to emotional reward to deeper attachment. And that just loops and loops and loops. It is an addictive loop. Even waiting becomes reinforcing. Waiting for change, waiting for reciprocity, waiting for clarity. Anticipation itself becomes emotionally activating. Let me grab some water. This is the second video I'm recording today, so I'm a little dry. All right. Emotional distortion and misinterpretation. Codependency introduces and sustains multiple distortions in your relationships. We have intensity versus safety. Emotional highs and lows are mistaken for passion. They're mistaken for depth. Let me say that again. Intensity versus safety. Emotional highs and lows are mistaken for depth. and instability is mistaken for passion. Validation versus fulfillment. Being chosen outweighs being nourished. Potential versus reality. Someone who someone could be replaces who they are. Relief versus loss. Calm feels like absence. Chaos feels like connection. Effort versus alignment. Effort replaces truth-based evaluation. The mechanics of the dynamic. Codependency operates through repeating structural mechanics. Overfunctioning versus underfunctioning. One person gives, fixes, anticipates, and the other receives, avoids, or disengages. Emotional labor imbalance. One regulates emotions. One repairs conflict. One maintains connection. They want me to highlight. I only said one. I did not say both. Remember, one gives, fixes, anticipates, and the other receives, avoids, or engages. That is emotional labor imbalance. This is a self-reinforcing loop. It moves from overgiving to imbalance to anxiety to more overgiving. And that shit just repeats. Micro choices. It is sustained through small, repeated actions. This can be saying yes again, staying again, excusing again. Control hidden inside care. Overgiving can function as control. Anticipating needs removes responsibility from the other person. Fixing prevents growth. Constant availability maintains dependency. The paradox is the dynamic often requires the other person not fully stepping into responsibility. They want me to highlight the fact that I said it requires the other person. That imbalance is required for that dynamic, that codependent dynamic to exist. It's not optional, it is required. Even their improvement can feel destabilizing because it threatens the role that gives identity. I'd say it again. Even the other person's improvement can feel destabilizing because it threatens the role that gives identity. Self-abandonment and internal disconnection. At the center is self-abandonment. Needs are suppressed, boundaries are overridden, and limits are ignored. Over time, external attunement, this is what you track outside of yourself, increases, and internal attunement, what you feel inside, decreases. This means a person can become so focused on managing the relationship and the other person's experience that they gradually lose touch with their own inner signals. You may notice others faster than yourself. Your decisions become reactive instead of self-led. Your emotional reference point moves outward. Your inner voice gets quieter over time, and you can lose clarity about your own limits. Your awareness of others becomes more immediate and trustworthy than your awareness of yourself. This creates a split. Intuition signals misalignment, and behavior continues anyway. That can also be called fragmentation. It's a splitting of the self, even if it is intentional or unintentional. It is fragmentation. It is a split within the self. This erodes self-trust more than self-esteem. Psychological binding forces. The pattern is held in place by guilt. This is, they need me. I can't leave. Fear of abandonment, fear of being replaceable, fear of being alone. Time investment. I've already given too much. Identity. I am the kind, patient one. Moral framing. Staying feels responsible. Leaving feels wrong. Avoidance and distraction. The relationship becomes a mechanism for avoiding the self. Focusing on the other replaces introspection. Fixing replaces emotional facing. Chaos replaces stillness. Even clarity is avoided because clarity requires action. Once, and I can say this from personal experience too, I'm channeling this, but I'm telling you, once you see codependency, you cannot unsee that shit. And once you really start clocking it, you would be amazed how pervasive that is in this world. Honestly, one of the most eye-opening experiences I ever saw. All right, so because of this, because clarity requires action, people remain in partial awareness. They get stuck in analyzing, hoping, and rationalizing. And just by the way codependency works, this will never get you out of that loop. This will never get you out of that dynamic, this pattern, this system. So you will be in partial awareness that you are participating, but you not taking action on this is you giving consent to actually continue participating in it. That is the nature of codependency. It is a nasty piece of work. So whoever manifested this series, I don't know if you fully understand what you were asking for, but you know what? This is important, and I'm actually glad we're having this conversation. I don't think as many people talk about this to the breadth and depth it really requires. So fear not, I got you, whether you want to continue listening or not. This will be out here. Normalization and threshold drift. Over time, self-abandonment becomes normal. Imbalance becomes expected. And distress becomes baseline. People measure against what they've tolerated, so the threshold for too much continuously shifts. Emotional consequences beneath the surface. Beneath the structure is resentment. Why am I carrying this alone? Grief for unmet needs, lost time, and unrealized outcomes. Identity grief. Why did I accept this? And fragmentation. Awareness and behavior are misaligned. You cannot have wholeness. You cannot have sovereignty with this fragmentation in place. You cannot be sovereign and be in codependent relationships. They literally cannot function. Distortion of love itself. Love becomes associated with effort, struggle, sacrifice, emotional labor, and instability. So when something is mutual, calm, and consistent, it can feel unfamiliar or less real. And that's in quotes, less real. You can self-sabotage when healthy, balanced love presents itself. If you stay in codependency long enough, that's what you get used to. That's what you learn to tolerate, and you will actually reject the real deal when it comes into your experience. You cannot be in codependency and have genuine, healthy love. They want me to make that very clear. Codependency is distortion of love itself. The fear of mutuality. Balanced connection requires receiving without earning, being seen without performance, and releasing control. This level of openness can feel more vulnerable than overgiving. And I'm hearing fight those demons. Fight those thoughts. All right? I'm hearing you are more than capable of overcoming this fear. But you do need to, if you are resonating with this message, you need to work through codependency to have that balanced connection, that genuine love. You need to have that level of openness to be able to actually receive it and sustain that healthy, balanced connection. Growth blocked on both sides. The overgiver avoids self-development through focus on others. The other person avoids responsibility through dependency. The relationship becomes a holding pattern rather than evolution, which can lead to feelings of stagnation. Why? Because growth is blocked on both sides in a codependent relationship. And I'm literally hearing, this is not negotiable. You may not like this message, but this is not negotiable. They want that to be very clear. The exit barrier. Leaving requires grief, guilt tolerance, identity restructuring, reality confrontation, and self-trust restoration. So awareness often exists before action, but action is delayed. And I'm going to be really honest for a second and tell you that leaving codependency has honestly been, if not the hardest, one of the hardest parts of my journey. But if I'm being very honest with myself, it is also the most rewarding and freeing aspect of my journey. There is a lot of nasty shit tied to codependency. If you can work through and free yourself from codependency, you'd be fucking amazed at the way your experience will shift. So I'm just going to throw that out there for someone's consideration. The required transformation. Change is existential, not behavioral. Separating identity from usefulness, redefining self-worth internally, rebuilding self-trust, allowing others' discomfort, and tolerating mutuality without control. Responsibility reframed. Responsibility is not managing outcomes or sustaining the relationship. It is owning participation and recognizing choice at each step. Once you recognize codependency, you have a choice as to whether you are going to continue participating at each step or not. Structural truth. No amount of effort, patience, sacrifice, or understanding can convert imbalance into health. I heard say it again. No amount of effort, patience, sacrifice, or understanding can convert imbalance into health, because imbalance is not a phase. It is the structure. Codependency requires the structure to survive. This is not a phase. Imbalance is not a phase. It is a structure. That is architecture. The final integrated message: codependency is not sustained by love. It is sustained by identity, anticipation, fear, guilt, reward, and avoidance of self. People believe they are fighting for love, but they are fighting to maintain a role that prevents them from experiencing it. Say it again. People believe they are fighting for love, but they are fighting to maintain a role that prevents them from experiencing it. I'm hearing codependency can never be genuine, reciprocal love. It cannot survive in that environment, and it was never meant to. The closing truth. Codependency does not just attach people to others. It disconnects them from themselves. It teaches performance instead of presence, earning instead of receiving, and endurance instead of alignment. And the deepest shift is not learning how to love better. It is learning how to stop abandoning yourself in the process of loving. Say it again. And the deepest shift is not learning how to love better. It is learning how to stop abandoning yourself in the process of loving. Because the moment self-abandonment ends, the entire structure of codependency can no longer hold. All right, I am being guided to leave it there. I will be posting part 2 and part 3 later this week. Again, depending on when you find this video, you can find either links to those videos in the description below, or you will see post dates of when to expect them. Part 2 will be a deeper dive to help us understand, to really help us determine, what needs to be understood about codependency and take a deeper dive on what I discussed here. And part 3 will focus on what needs to be done. So feel free to move at your pace, honor your pace. And if you feel called to move forward with this, I look forward to talking to you shortly. If you don't at this time, just know that content will remain there when it is available. Until then, take care of yourselves, beautiful beings. Bye.